So we've talked a little bit before about how you will read your own individual texts and Agamemnon, Medea, and Antigone, but we'll all sort of be on the same page as far as looking at Oedipus the king. For tomorrow, I'd like you reading a bit of Aristotle's theory of tragedy, and when you go to the website, you'll find two links. You'll find the link to selections from the Poetics, his actual book, which means reading Aristotle and Aristotle's actual language. It'll be a little bit dense and a little bit challenging for you. And that's why I've also included a link to a college-level study guide for that section, which is much more readable and much clearer. I would like you to read the study guide, and then you can refer to the actual text of the Poetics to get a sense of what Aristotle's language is like, possibly to check references that are made in the study guide, and just to understand what ancient philosophy writing sort of feels like. As you do that, you will hear Aristotle making references to Oedipus the king. Aristotle loves Sophocles, thinks that he is the foremost of Greek tragedy writers, and he talks about the play Oedipus the king quite a bit. But he talks about with the assumption that his audience knows the play and knows the story. And of course, most of you don't. Anybody here very familiar with the story of Oedipus? Are you very familiar? Oh, just kind of. Okay, kind of familiar. I don't want you to tell anything because I do love the shock value of some aspects of the story. Today, I'd like to tell you the story of Oedipus, not only to help you understand the Aristotle material, that's very important, but also to help you understand other references that will be made throughout the Greek tragedy unit and to prepare you for what you will see a week from tomorrow. I do not believe that any student or any viewer should go into a play like Oedipus the King without knowing the play first. The play is not predicated upon shock and surprise and plot twists. Even though those can be enjoyable, the play serves a bit of a different purpose. So it's fair for you to know the story ahead of time. And if you want a comparison, you knew very well that Romeo and Juliet would die at the end of Romeo and Juliet. The prologue tells you. So no surprise there, which means that Shakespeare must be doing something else than just wanting to shock you. In fact, tragedy, as Aristotle says, is inevitable. So let's know the story of Oedipus the king. And today it is story time. And of course, yay, story time. And of course, Tegan's asking the question, Mr. Clarkson, do we need to take notes? That's the cousin to the question, will this be on the test? Which is sort of annoying to teachers. But no, Tegan, you don't have to take notes today. Just enjoy the story. Oh, I wish. If we had carpet squares. Yeah. I'm listening. What? Did you really just ask that question? I just ridiculed that question. Didn't you hear me ridiculing that question? Okay. Yes. Oh my God. Now you two are just messing with me. King Laius and Queen Jocasta. And I'm ignoring you, Tim. I'm really seriously ignoring you when I just stated you don't need to take notes. So I'm seriously ignoring your question. If you keep insisting on it, then I'll continue to deliver it in the manner I'm delivering right now. Thank you. There's a way to strike a tone at the beginning of story time. King Laius and Queen Jocasta rule over Thebes, and they rule happily over Thebes. This is a happily married couple. And what's the only thing that could make a happily married couple even happier? Absolutely. A princess? Well, sorry, they had a prince. I know. Sad. They had a prince. No, although it would share a number of characteristics with Disney. Disney's just a little bit softened version of tales like this. I'm serious. So they have a baby, and as good king and queen, they like to consult with people on the proper raising of their child. This is a political matter as well as just being a family matter. They're talking about an heir to the throne. They're often listening to advice from different locations. So they consult with something called the Oracle at Delphi, or the Oracle at Delphi. Anybody familiar with this thing? Okay, Catherine, tell us what this is. Yes. That's right. So it's a prophecy. But it's a prophecy because this witch-like, priest-like lady that goes into a trance and speaks in tongues. Have you seen the 300? It's a very stylized version of that, but they're trying to represent this same sort of thing. And this was an actual place, and this was an actual occurrence, where a priestess would go into a sort of trance, speak in tongues, and a priest would interpret what she's saying. Now, what she's saying is supposed to be the direct word of a god. And Delphi is the direct word of, anybody know which god? Apollo, thank you. One of the premier of all Greek gods. So, they consult with the oracle of Delphi about their kid, what's going to happen, what they should do, and they find out something rather disturbing. They find out that the oracle says that the son will kill the father and marry the mother. Rather disturbing. What would you do? Kill your kid, right? It's a rational reaction. But in good James Bond fashion, they don't actually kill. They'd send somebody else to kill that person. So, I know, isn't it though? Laius and Jocasta disfigure their son's feet. Stories differ, but in some way they bound the feet in such a way to prevent the child from escaping. Think about that for a moment. Look at the kid. To prevent the child from escaping when the child was left on the mountainside, Mount Katarin, to die. So don't kill the kid, because that's kind of tough. It's really rough to kill your own child. Give it to a servant to leave on the side of a hill to die. And that's... I know. But the servant can't find it in himself to kill this child any more than the parents could find it in themselves to kill this child. So the servant takes that child and gives him to a shepherd. Shepherd gives that child to the childless couple that is ruling over Corinth, another royal family. So unlike many of our stories, which are kind of rags to riches stories, this is the riches to riches story. This kid goes from being a prince here to being a prince here. But, of course, he's still a baby. So Polybus and Merope, yay, we now have a new little baby boy. They don't go to the oracle, smart move. And they're just adoring this child. And they raise the child totally not telling him that he's adopted. Oedipus grows up believing that Polybus and Merope are his parents. Until one day, when some drunken idiot at a party lets slip that Polybus and Merope are not actually Oedipus' parents. And this is later, when Oedipus is a young man. And Oedipus is, confused and doesn't believe that this can be the case, but he doesn't know what to think. He thinks there's probably something in him, says maybe this is true, I don't know. Where am I going to go to find out? Speak up. That's right, I'm going to go back to the oracle, because that's been working so well for us. So I'm going to go to the oracle, and the oracle is going to tell me being Oedipus, that guess what? I'm going to kill my father and marry my mother. Which sounds kind of repetitive because it's the exact same prophecy that was given to his parents. Oedipus believes that Polybus and Merope are his parents. He believes that he will kill Polybus and marry Merope. And he loves his dad. He doesn't want to kill him. And he loves his mom, but not in that way. So what's the rational course of action? Kill somebody else's parents. Because that'll satisfy Apollo. Apollo doesn't care who I kill. I'll just kill somebody else's parents. Good thinking, Blake, but no. What's the other rational course of action? Run away. He leaves Corinth, vowing never to threaten his parents. If I'm a threat to them, I'm getting out of here. See ya. And while we see this young man at the wheel of his car, Oedipus would have been at the reins of his chariot. Literally. It's important. It comes into the story later on that he's riding a chariot. So he leaves Corinth, horrified at this prospect, and he will not threaten his parents. Meanwhile, back over at Thebes, Thebes has got problems, as Thebes often does. Thebes is being threatened by the Sphinx, a large monster of Greek myth, part eagle, part lion, part woman, all monstrous destroying power. And it's laying siege to Thebes, killing people, killing Thebans left and right. So oh snap. You're going to get pwned? You don't know pwned? There you go. Internet speak. It refuses to leave until somebody solves its riddle. It's a strange monster. It says, hey, guess what? I'll stop eating your people if you solve my strange riddle. People try, and nobody's able to successfully solve this riddle. So men who try to solve the riddle are being eaten, and people are being killed, and Thebes is under siege. So Laius, king of Thebes, says, we need some help. I gotta get out of here. Find some help. Find somebody that can solve this riddle. So he leaves the city in his chariot with an entourage, some people, and he encounters Oedipus on the road. And they get into a dispute over the right of way. You move. No, you move. No, you move. No, I was here first. No, I was here first. You get out of my way. No, you get out of my way. Oedipus gets angry and kills everybody. Sensible, right? Because that's what people do on the LA freeway. They pull a gun and shoot people in their way. It's almost American. All right. So Oedipus kills everybody. And he just keeps going on his way, all big smile on his face because he got the road. And as he continues on the road, where's he going? Straight to Thebes, and he encounters the Sphinx. Now think about Oedipus for a moment. Here's a young man who has decided that he can defy and furthermore succeed in defying the will of the gods. Here's a man who is so incredibly aggressive and acting on instinct that he kills people for the slightest insult. This guy is all action and pride. So he encounters the Sphinx. Of course he's going to try to take it out, because that's what he does. He's a man of power. He's a little bit like a god on earth. And remember, we read that first line of Oedipus the king, and the people were kind of treating him like a god on earth. So he decides to try to solve the Sphinx's fiddle. What did I say? The Sphinx's riddle. That was awesome. You can't plan that stuff. So we've got the riddle of the Sphinx. That's not the riddle of the Sphinx. That's the riddle of the Sphinx. What goes on 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 at night? How many of you have never heard this riddle before? Good. Good portion of you. Then I'll let those of you sitting out there just sort of sit with it for a moment. That's the classic riddle of the Sphinx. Nobody could solve it. Nobody could determine what this thing is. Somebody who knows an answer. What's the answer? Yeah. Man. Let's be sexist for a moment. We're in ancient literature. Why, Carson?
Because when they're born, they crawl on 4 legs too much, and then when they're regular.
We'll say adults.
They're an adult, they walk, and then when they're old, they decay. So.
Oedipus is, I love this as an English teacher, because Oedipus is the only person to realize that the metaphor, or the riddle is metaphorical. It's not literal. So morning is not literally morning, it's youth. Afternoon is not literally afternoon, it's adulthood, and evening is old age. So everybody else walking up saying, I don't know, it's a strange turtle thing that cuts off its legs and then puts one back on every day. And the Sphinx is eating them because, of course, no, they are not able to think of something in a different fashion. So Oedipus actually has demonstrated how well he can think, how critically he can think. And so he solves the riddle. And, of course, she says, hey, good job, you win. Win. She throws herself off a cliff and dies. I guess that's what happens when you're an ancient Greek monster and somebody solves your riddle. You decide to plunge to your own death. So, yeah, see, that's the other question. Can't she fly? Yeah, well, she dies. She's despairing. He wins. The people of Thebes are overjoyed and missing a king. So they make Oedipus the king. You are such a cool guy, Oedipus, that we want you to be our king. The position's vacant. We don't know what happened to Elias. You haven't seen him, have you? No, I haven't seen a thing. Oh, all right. So he's now king. He steps right over Creon. Creon is the brother to the king and would have been next in line on the throne, but don't worry, there's plenty of evidence that shows that Creon doesn't really want the throne. He's not interested in that job. And being king, what else does he get? That's right, the queen, his mom. No, nobody knows anything. The last time she saw him, he was an infant. She didn't name him. Oedipus, and this is good question. Oedipus translates from the Greek as basically meaning swollen foot. I know, great name, isn't it? Hello, I am swollen foot. His adopted parents named him after picking him up and after the disfiguring of his feet. In fact, Sophocles himself in his writing quite often makes little indirect references to feet and foundation and stability, referring to the weakness of his disfigurement. And some actors have enacted him such that he hobbles a little bit because of old wounds to his feet. So Oedipus means that, but she never makes the connection. Nobody makes the connection. And he still believes that Polybus and Merope are his parents. So these two get married. There's Antigone. There's Ismene. There's Eteocles. And Polynices. The girls and the boys. Girls are nice. Boys not so. So does anybody know why this is an ancient depiction of Eteocles and Polynices, why they're stabbing each other? Carson.
Because I think, was it Eteocles that exiled Polynices
Mm-hmm.
from Rome, and then Polynices became king of, I don't remember what the city was.
Argos.
Argos, and then came to actually kill each other.
That's right. In sort of a civil war, they kill each other. And that, by the way, that conflict is immediately occurring as Antigone opens the play. So it's just happened. They've just killed each other when Antigone the play opens. So those of you reading Antigone, you'll be focusing on the what happens with these children. But of course, right now we're still on Oedipus. These kids are just being born, and of course we've reached this. Incest abounds. Nobody knows about it, but Oedipus rules in peace for 20 years, married to his mother. Nobody being the wiser. Tyler. Tyler, it's an excellent question, and I think I've got a fairly decent answer for that. Think about time frames outside of our own culture. In our own culture, we have much longer life expectancy, so we live at a slower rate. Whereas with a shorter life expectancy, you live at a faster rate. I would imagine that Oedipus, when he left Corinth, was probably a young man relatively of your age. So 15, 16, 17 years old. His mother, when she had him as a baby, was probably about how old? Probably about the same. Probably about the same. So let's give them each 16. When they marry, she's 32. I know not in your world, but in the rest of the world, that's still a relatively young woman. And that's still childbearing age. So there's no reason that they could not have been married, and 20 years later, she's 52. Still not a bad age. She's not some decrepit ancient crone. So if you do the math, then it's most likely that that the age difference was not ridiculous. Autumn? Oh my gosh! You know what? That's actually, Autumn, a question that I don't know the answer to, because the events in this historically predate the Odyssey. Yeah. Well, ancient texts, read your Bible, sometimes speak of people living to ridiculously old ages back in ancient times. So this is literature, you know. I've tried to hypothesize how it might be historically accurate, but it's still literature, still fictional. Emily?
Doesn't he know though that his parents, like the people who raised him, were actually Sphinx?
No.
Isn't that why he left?
No,
People told him.
he left because he believed Polybus and Merope were his actual birth parents,
Oh, and other people.
because he wanted to get away from them.
Oh, okay.
Right? Yes.
Oh, and that drunk guy told him that those weren't his parents.
But he doesn't believe that drunk guy.
Oh, so he thought he was
He went to the oracle, right? Immediately after that, he went to the oracle, and the oracle tells him this prophecy, which sort of distracts him from what the drunk guy said in the first place. So he never believes that Polybus and Merope are anything but his actual parents. After 20 years of peace, plague descends. Disease has struck Thebes. Does anyone know the Greek god of disease that is also the Greek god of healing? Both sides. Apollo. Apollo, the god of the oracle of Delphi. The god that Oedipus intentionally defied. But he tried to. The attempt to defy is just as bad as the successful defiance. And the writers of ancient Greek epics and tragedies would never say that you could actually win against the gods. Read your Homer. Read Sophocles. You can't win, but just trying is annoying to the gods. So Apollo has struck a plague upon Thebes, and this is where Sophocles' story begins. Everything I've just told you, all that storytelling, does not happen in Oedipus the King. It happens before Oedipus the King. So we are concerned with Oedipus the King, and now I'm about to tell you the story of that play. So what I've just told you is Greek myth that happens before the play. If you're an ancient Greek spectator, you walk into an amphitheater during one of these festivals, you're going to watch Oedipus the King. Everything I've just told you, you already know. And Sophocles is banking on you knowing it. Sophocles expects you to know the story, the myth of Oedipus before you watch Oedipus the King. So let's get into his play. People of Thebes are upset because they're dying, because it's a plague. And so they go to the palace gates and they beg for help. They want some assistance, and of course the only person really that can save them is Oedipus. And now think about Oedipus. Arrogant, powerful, aggressive, a god on earth. Of course he believes he can save them, and of course they think that he can save them. He's done it before. Why can't he do it this time? Blake?
So he still thinks he defies the god.
Absolutely. And furthermore, later he's going to get what he thinks is evidence that he's won. He's arrogant. Still a nice guy because he's a good king. He protects his people. So he wants to help. He's a king. He wants to help his people. He wants to find out why Apollo's angry. Where's he going to go? Of course, he's going to go to the Oracle of Delphi. All bad stories begin there. But he doesn't actually go. He sends Creon, his brother-in-law, to go. I know. Uncle brother-in-law. That's right. So, yeah. Oedipus sends Creon, and at the beginning of the play, Creon returns from the oracle, and Oedipus says, hey, you asked the god, and if, by the way, if you're ever watching Oedipus the King or reading it and you hear somebody referring to the god singular, they're always talking about Apollo. So he said, what did you hear from the god? And Creon, so Oedipus asks, what did you find out? Creon says, Apollo is angry because Thebes is harboring a murderer. It's a murderer in Thebes who's never been brought to justice, and he's allowed to live here and prosper here, and Apollo's really upset. So we got a murder mystery. At which Oedipus immediately says, done. I'm going to investigate it. I'm going to find out who did it. No problem whatsoever. And Oedipus the King is, in a real sense, your first Western example of a murder mystery detective thriller. The tragic twist is that Oedipus is looking for himself and doesn't know it. You're on.
At this point, no one knows what Elias was.
Correct. Nobody knows what there are reports of what happened to Elias, but and Oedipus is going to hear some of those reports in his investigation, but nobody knows who did it. They believe that he was killed out there. They know he was killed, but they don't know who did it. They don't know how many there were. They don't know if he was waylaid on the road by a pack of bandits or what went on. They don't know. They've got to put these pieces together. Yeah, Paulina.
Doesn't Oedipus know he killed someone?
Yes, but apparently that's nothing to Oedipus. He doesn't make the connection. He doesn't know who this guy was. Laius never identified himself. So he doesn't know who this guy is. He doesn't believe that he killed him. Blake?
Was the mom like worried about when the husband didn't come back?
Oh, I would imagine so. That's not part of the play, but I would imagine that she would. But of course, Thebes,
Your son is your husband right away though. She had to.
she had to. The people selected Oedipus as their king, and so she was just sort of given. But all evidence in Oedipus the King shows that they had a pretty happy marriage. Oedipus next inquires of Tiresias. You remember Tiresias? No. Tiresias is the blind prophet that you may have read of in the Odyssey. Remember, Odysseus wants to know where to go, so he goes and consults Tiresias. But what's the problem? No, Tiresias is blind, but Tiresias is possessed of a second sight. What's the problem in the Odyssey? He was dead. So, of course, for Odysseus, that's no problem. He's like, guy's dead. I don't care. I'll go straight down to hell to find him, which he does. But at this time, Tiresias is very much well alive and operating in Thebes. So Oedipus consults Tiresias and says, hey, do you know who the killer is? I'm going to find out who did it. Tiresias knows. Of course Tiresias knows. Tiresias knows everything. So he remains silent. Oedipus gets angry. Tell me who killed him. Tiresias says, no. Why would he say no? That's right. Oedipus is not exactly the calmest of men. So Tiresias thinks, there's no way I'm telling you. So Oedipus, of course, starts to get angry. I'll kill you. Okay, fine. You did it. Yep. Oedipus says, yeah, sure. That makes sense. A death sentence has been pronounced upon the murderer. Oedipus thinks that Tiresias is lying, because if Tiresias can implicate Oedipus, Oedipus will be executed and the throne will be open. If that's the case, who would be the architect of such a conspiracy? Creon. Oedipus, in his paranoid fantasy, believes, Creon, you paid this guy off. You're the one who came from the oracle. You've manufactured this entire thing to get me dead so you can have the throne. Creon says, you're insane. And I love his justification. Creon's justification is priceless. He said, dude, I'm part of the royal family. I sit in the palace all day long and do nothing. You have a job. You have to manage people. Why would I want that? I get all the benefits and none of the work. I want to be brother-in-law to the king. That's a sweet position. He's no Scar, right? He doesn't want the work. Oedipus says it doesn't matter, and Jocasta walks in trying to calm down Oedipus. So Jocasta tries to calm Oedipus. Oedipus is still extraordinarily angry, of course, because that's how he spends most of his time, being angry. He continues on this paranoid fantasy, but at a certain point in the play, new news arrives. A messenger arrives from Corinth and says, guess what? Polyobus and Merope are dead. Newsflash. The king and queen of Corinth are dead. Oedipus believes these are his parents. How would Oedipus react? Be angry? Kill somebody else? Of course he's happy. Yay! I win. Apollo's wrong. I didn't kill my father. I didn't marry my mother. They're dead. I'm happy. So he even considers, now that he believes a conspiracy is tearing through Thebes to dethrone him, he thinks, well, maybe I'll go to Corinth and be king there. So that's my rightful kingdom. But before all this can happen, new evidence comes to light. They find a shepherd. Uh-oh. who has some information. This is one of my favorite points of the play because you can almost see Jocasta putting pieces together. And she's kind of standing in the background. You can see her calculating, realizing the truth very slowly. But once she realizes the truth, and Oedipus is saying, hey, let's hear what this guy has to say, she's there at his side saying, nah, let's not. Tell you what, let's go back into the palace and call it a day. Let's abandon this investigation thing. I don't think this is going to do any good for us, because she's figured it out. And she thinks the best thing to do is just to ignore it. But, of course, Oedipus insists. One of Oedipus' driving characteristics, besides his anger, besides his arrogance, is his desire to know. And he's always continuing with the investigation. He's a wonderful character in Greek literature. And he wants to know, and so the servant, or the shepherd, spills everything. Yep, you're the baby I sent to Corinth. Laius is your real father, Jocasta is your mother, and then Oedipus finally makes the connection. Oh, I guess that was the guy I killed. Oops. Oh, and I guess that makes you. Oh. Everything is now revealed. Oedipus knows everything, Jocasta knows everything, the entire political structure of Thebes is falling apart. Its royal family has just been revealed as sinful, an abomination, immorality in the eyes of the gods. And so everybody's got to have a reaction. Jocasta and Oedipus walk back into the palace, and Jocasta kills herself. Well, I don't know. It seems like a rational reaction, I guess, to this sort of thing. She hangs herself. Oedipus walks in on her hanging herself. Right, does nothing. No, that seems like Oedipus. Takes the brooch from her robe, takes the pin, and gouges his own eyes out. Well, hold on. Think about it for a moment. It makes sense on two levels. One, Oedipus doesn't want to see the world anymore. He's done. He's like, I'm done. Give up. This whole world's a mess. I tried to do what was right, and it turned out to be this. I don't want to look at anything anymore. Second level in which his eye gouging makes sense, the Greeks had a cultural belief that blindness was a sign of wisdom. That's why Tiresias is blind. That's why Homer is reputed to be blind as well. So in myths told about Homer and the character Tiresias, they're both blind and both possessed of a great insight. So when Oedipus finally knows what's going on, he turns blind. And that's very Greek. So she's dead. He's blind. He's implicated as a murderer. He should be executed for what he's done. Creon, of course, assumes the throne. And he will keep the throne until Polynices and Eteocles are of age. And he's got to figure out what to do with Oedipus. Now, technically, Oedipus should be executed. But Creon decides, no, you know what? Mercy, just leave. Go. So in ancient Greece, it was common for banishment to take the place of execution. We had little city-states, not big nations. So in a little city-state in Athens, or Thebes, or Corinth, and Argos, wherever, just a couple miles and you're out of the national boundary. Who cares? You're somebody else's problem. So he tells Oedipus to leave. Sophocles and the ancient Greeks like to leave their tragic heroes alive, but utterly destroyed. Shakespeare, he likes to kill his tragic heroes and anybody around them. So when a tragic hero in Shakespeare dies, it's like a hand grenade going off, and generally anybody within a 10-foot radius dies too. But Sophocles likes to leave his tragic heroes just destroyed, shambled messes. Because there is the idea that death is a kind of salvation, a kind of peace, and he won't allow his tragic heroes to achieve even that. So Oedipus is left on the road a blind, shambling beggar. There is one amount of solace for Oedipus, and that is that Antigone says, oh, wait, I'll come with you. So Antigone does follow her father and helps him along the road. She will eventually, after his death, return, take part of the royal family of Thebes as well. But Creon is left as the king to live a long and happy life. Until the next play. And that is Oedipus the King. Aww.